Wow, guys. I'm jumping here really fast because, as you guys know, I love law. And this is pretty darn serious. Mr. Harputlian and Mr. Griffin, the defense attorneys for Alec Murdaugh, have just come and accused the Clerk of Court, Mrs. Hill, who recently published a book, Behind the Doors of Justice or the Curtains of Justice, something like that. They are accusing her of misconduct and unduly influencing I'm sorry, that was me. That was me blowing my own horn. Of trying to tell the gentleman that I did not mean to do that. So they're accusing her of misconduct associated with telling the jurors not to believe what Alec Murdaugh was going to say, to watch his actions, to be very careful to not buy the arguments of the defense attorneys. And probably the part that concerns me the most is that throughout the jury deliberation, or when the juries were in their room, their assigned rooms, they were given, those that smoke were given smoke breaks, and they were given smoke breaks throughout the trial. And that when it was time to deliberate, allegedly, they were told no more smoking breaks. Come up with a verdict. Now we know that people that smoke have an addiction to nicotine, right? And so we know that doing something like that would create undue pressure for them to come up with a verdict sooner. According to them, they have 3 signed affidavits that justify or that assert that this juror misconduct took place. One of the affidavits was signed by one of the jurors who was dismissed. It's always important to weigh the trustworthiness of a witness, and considering that this juror was dismissed, that statement on its own could not be used with enough credibility. But if they have 2 additional affidavits, and these are jurors that actually were part of coming up with a verdict, then that's a completely different story. And what that means is that we have 2 jurors that are saying, I felt under pressure to come up with a decision. And so they claim that what made the jurors be willing to talk to them was the fact that she came up with a book. And I'm working on a book, and I've been working on that book for a long time, and I don't suggest that everybody has to take as long as it's taken me to come up with this book, right? I'm not saying that. But I have to admit that when she was interviewed the other day, when the book came out, I was like, wow, that she must have really, really have advanced in the writing of that book. She must have really, really had been working on it way before the trial was over, because there's no way you can pull that off such a few months after the verdict was rendered. Like, I was like, she must have started sooner. Now, that in itself does not mean that she did anything inappropriate, but it does show that she was very vested. And to be quite honest with you guys, I've never been in agreement with people like writing books or about like cases that they've handled. For example, in the book that I'm writing, Is My Life and I'll Cry If I Want To, one of the basic premises is that I have dressed the lives of every one of the individuals that trusted me. I have dressed them. I have found different nationalities, different names. I have included their story, but have modified them enough so that it cannot be traced back. As a matter of fact, I was going to be published by one of the main publishers, one of the 7 main publishers here in the United States, and they wanted me to get releases from these people, and I refused because I didn't want anything in writing that would tie them to their stories. I had promised them that that would not happen, and so I just think I think it's unethical. And I honestly don't know. I see lawyers that represent people and then write books. Now this clerk of court, and I have to tell you, when I saw the interview, I'm like, wow, but that just strikes me as a conflict of interest right there, because she's an officer of the court. She's a political appointee. And even if she wasn't a political appointee, it's just to having that kind of proximity to the case and have access to the jurors. They're saying that she was speaking to the jurors privately a lot. And I honestly think that, the law is going to have to come out and people are going to have to be forbidden from doing that kind of stuff. I'm reminded of the strawberry shortcake juror lady, because of her and because she didn't disclose certain information when she was being selected for Scott Peterson's trial. She got him out of the death penalty. We have a system of justice, and we also have it in my country of Panama. And I know that sometimes we want to see people punished and punished in a hurry. And I'm not here to say that I believe Alex Murdaugh is innocent. I believe that he's guilty. But again, we have a system of justice. And when people get overzealous and start taking shortcuts because they're overzealous, what they do is they jeopardize convictions. Because I personally believe that Alex Murdaugh was appropriately convicted of the crimes he committed. But man, it would be a real pity if someone like her, like Mrs. Hill, who believes that he's guilty, has done something, has engaged in behavior that is jeopardizing his conviction, right? Because that's literally what happened in the Scott Peterson case, only that was a juror. So, you can almost give her a pass, yes and no, because, her thing was she didn't disclose that she had been involved in a domestic violence case, right? And it doesn't take a lot of specialized education for that. But in the case of Miss Hill, we're talking about an officer of the court. She should have known better than influencing people that way. I honestly cannot see the benefit, whether he was convicted or acquitted. Why would that have an impact on her book? They're using the book as her being ambitious and greedy and wanted him to get a guilty verdict for purposes of her book. But one thing has nothing to do with the other, right? I mean, books are written every day about people that are convicted or acquitted, right? But the bottom line, guys, is if this truly happened, this is all alleged right now. It has to be proven. But if this is in fact what happened, then the corruption in South Carolina is worse than we all thought. Because, I think one of the things that came out of this Murdaugh case is like the level of corruption at the highest levels of justice. And this would just be a little bit of the same, right? That's why it's so hard to point our little crooked finger and accuse others, because in most instances, as I like to say about my own life, our lives are made out of glass. And when we throw rocks out of other people's houses, they may bounce and break our own house. And it would be pretty awful if this system of justice, who has been so indignant about how Alex Murdaugh betrayed the community, betrayed the society, betrayed the law and the justice that had been entrusted to him and his family members for so many years, it would be such a pity, and it would be such an irony if it ends up being that system of justice failed the people again by engaging in practices that may have jeopardized the true practice and exercise of justice. And so I'm going to leave it here, because at this point, this is all alleged. But I wanted to jump here to give you my reactions, as I just finished watching the press conference, and I wanted to react and tell you guys now what was in my heart and my mind. So, what do you guys think? Tell me what you think. This is insane, isn't it? I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.